Okay, back to the council. Councilor Chance?
How many units are market rate and how many are low income in this latest proposal?
15 market rate and the balance,
Our workforce.
56 low income or workforce.
Maybe Link can answer this. What's the total TIF amount in dollars over the life of the TIF, going back to the developer?
We have not actually done a pro forma on it yet. The TIF itself would be 50% of the new taxes generated for a period of 15 years. That's why it's not in front of you tonight for action. Not Joe Groby, Bill Healy needs to look at the pro forma, come up with a pro forma on what this will generate for taxes.
So you don't have any idea on what that's going to be? You have no numbers?
I have not developed numbers. I know, Amy, in an early presentation, I think you had 40,000 was the taxes you had thought.
That's without any consultation with city staff.
Again, so I mean, it's in that ballpark, but we need to develop that.
So 40,000 is a very rough estimate.
Very rough.
Right.
I mean, it will be based, as all multifamily housing is, it'll be based on what does this produce for income.
Do we have any comparables in the last 10 or 15 years to base this off of?
The Lofts at Bates Mill is a similar type project. I mean, Bill Healy does all multifamilies are based on what income does it generate. It has nothing to do with sales, so we don't need sales. It's simply what is the revenue stream from this property, and that's what the taxes are based upon.
Okay. As you know, I had some concerns about the low-income housing aspect of this. In discussions over the last year and a half or so, it was noted that low-income housing may not be appropriate in this part of town. The goal, I believe, was market rate to get, as the mayor has said many times, more affluent people down there, young professionals with perhaps a higher income, with well-paying professional jobs downtown, and to attract that element. I agreed with that sentiment. That's how I felt. And my concern is the appropriateness of this particular unit. Now, I believe that what the developer is doing is good, and he's done some good work. My inclination is that there may be a more appropriate spot for this with this type of housing in Lewiston. And I believe you have looked at other areas in Lewiston?
We have looked at some other sites, yeah. Most recently, the site that the city owns at the corner of Maple and Park. But we really were drawn to this one because of thought that this site had more of a chance to really make a difference, a positive difference for the community, because it is such a gaping hole right now. And the Maple and Park site really wouldn't have any opportunity to do any retail there, whereas here we thought we could help revitalize the area by bringing people to retail uses that don't currently exist.
And the limitation of the retail space, you said approximately half the building would not be retail on that ground floor?
Right. The rear of the building would be apartments, and the front would be retail. We don't think that's a problem because even though often historically retail spaces have been deep and narrow, here basically you'd just be flipping around that same shape and having the depth be along Lisbon Street rather than back from Lisbon Street. And that actually has a lot of benefits for retailers because they have more windows on the street. And they can.
And how many suites would you have for the retail aspect?
It would totally depend on how many, on the size of the retailers that approached us. For example, if they were a small art gallery, for example, that they might only take 1/4 of the space. Whereas if they were a large restaurant, they might take half or even more than half.
So 1/4 of the space would be approximately 30 by 30? 30 by 30 square?
So it would be approximately 40 feet across and 30 feet deep. Would be.
This space would be 50 feet across, 30 feet deep.
Well, he said a quarter.
Oh, a quarter.
So
I'm
that'll
sorry.
be a third,
I said
50
right.
feet. So.
Right, yeah.
Those are the concerns I have. And, you know, I've seen the other properties you've done, and I think you've got some real winners in those. And
Thank you.
my concern, again, is The housing in this spot and the limited retail, although it is important to run the retail down the run of the property, and I think that's a good thing. The performance of the TIF, a lot of this, the financials are based on low-income housing credits, the 50% TIF over 15 years, and I'm sure Link will address all this coming up. You don't specialize in retail, you specialize in the housing developments.
Right.
Okay, and
Although we do own 2 retail units in Exeter, New Hampshire, but that's correct. We specialize in housing.
And the lofts was
The-
that your
The
development?
lofts at Bates Mill was ours, yes.
And anything else in town?
No, not in Lewiston or Auburn.
As far as construction of this, the market rate units, will those differ from the low-income units?
No, they will not. They will probably have preferential views, but that's the only way that they would differ. Maine State Housing Authority's program would not allow us to do, for example, granite countertops in the market rate units, but Formica countertops in the workforce units. So we would do Formica countertops in both. We would do, for example, VCT or vinyl sheet goods on the floors of the bathrooms, rather than having ceramic tile on the floors of the bathrooms of the market rate unit and VCT in the workforce unit. So the units would be indistinguishable from each other. However, they would be built to a nice standard, like the units that we showed slides of. So we've found that we've had no trouble marketing our market rate units to doctors, lawyers, accountants, and other professionals. In fact, there are a couple of very highly paid doctors living in our market rate units at the lofts at Bates Mill. Because even though they don't have a lot of luxury features, they're just built solid and attractive, and we find that we have no trouble marketing them to good high earners, anybody.
And as far as the types of units, is it floor plans? Will there be several different options, or are they going to basically be the same unit throughout the building?
They're basically going to be the same unit throughout the building. We've found that there really isn't enough one-bedroom apartments in Lewiston, and that's true of many communities in southern and central Maine. So that's what we're going to be focusing on.
So this will be 71 one-bedroom units?
That's our plan currently. If we can put a few 2 bedrooms in, we would do that. But one of the factors that drives this is the Maine housing. In order to be competitive for those all-important tax credits, you have to have a very low cost per unit, and one of the ways that we can stay under that cost per unit limitation is by having smaller units. So when we go to the 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom units, it makes it hard to score enough points to win.
And the square footage at this point of the units?
560 square feet with an open concept, so that the living room, the kitchen would be open to the living room. So it would be, and then there would be a separate bedroom with a door that closes and a bathroom, a walk-in closet in the bedroom.
Single level per unit.
Single level, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Chance?
Thank you. Another question, I just remembered this. Regarding the home funds and low-income housing credits, I believe there are strings attached with those dollars, income restrictions on the residents, subsidies such as that. Is there a lock, an income restriction on these properties that are subsidized and receive these monies? And how long does that hold on to the property?
Sure, that's a great question, Councilor. Currently, Maine State Housing requires that these projects be affordable for 45 years. So that has changed. It was recently 90 years, but about 4 years ago they brought it down to 45 years because some municipalities were saying we don't think that those kinds of restrictions should be last so long, and they listened to that and they heard that feedback.
And we were very appreciative that they did.
So this will be mostly low-income housing until 2060 something,
Right.
regardless of what happens downtown.
That's correct. If this goes through, and then in 45 years, it could be turned into condominiums or all market rate housing, anything.
we'll all be long gone by then.
Not me.
Some of us. Some of us.
Good, glad that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Motion passed by a vote of 6 to 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on, agenda item.